Things are always changing in the world of sports, and changes may be coming to Major League Baseball. As news broke last week that Major League Baseball will be testing out robot umpires in the upcoming 2025 spring training. So what does that mean for baseball? What does that mean for even our local teams here in New York that fans love? We're going to talk about it with a TV host. She also does a bunch of stuff around sports business. Her name is Julia Sun, and she joins me now. Julia, how you doing?
Hey, so good to see you.
I know. Good to see you. How was your Thanksgiving holiday?
It
How's
was
everything going?
great. I had 3 friends over. We had turkey. We ate a lot. Hopefully, I
Nice.
don't look fatter.
No, no. Well, I'm not saying that. You look great. You feel great. You ate great. That's
I
how we all
feel
feel at Thanksgiving.
fantastic. And you know what? For how many live hits that we've done together, we
Yeah,
never really talked about technology. Because
we
this
haven't.
thing we're talking about today, that's been called the future of baseball. And I'm
Yeah,
glad we're finally hitting it.
we're finally talking about it. We're talking about technology here. So I think let's start with this, Julia, because I think a lot of people will be like, "Hey, I'm a baseball fan.
Mhm.
I've looked at umpiring my whole life, watching baseball, whatever, however long that may be. What are the key differences between umpiring the system that we know
Mhm.
and the current human model, right? But then when
Mhm.
you look at this robot model, what are the key differences and how does the technology work
Well,
for what
how
they're
does
going to
it
test?
work? It's basically a bunch of cameras tracking the ball. That's the
Mm.
oversimplified version. It's not a robot takeover. I've heard that term from a lot of people. It's not like R2D2 cruising around home base and, just making it entertaining for everybody, although that would be really cool. So the umps are still standing at where they usually stand. Anybody who follows the sport knows that accuracy has become a point of contention and frustration for fans and players in just about nearly every single game. Now, Major League Baseball introduced the automated ball strike system, or ABS, as you call it. And they are aiming to increase the accuracy of the call and reduce delays. I have personally been talking about this technology on TV since back in 2023. The technology itself was developed much, much, much earlier than that. It needed testing, as always, and it took years. This technology was actually first introduced in summer 2019 in the Atlantic League, and then later it started to work its way up in the minor league, excuse me. And then years later, the major league said, "Well, let's get all the players to get a feel for it." So here's how it works. With any system, it could be a software or hardware, there are inputs and then there are outputs. Now, the first input for this system is the location and dimension of the strike zone. And, unlike in tennis, the line is there. Is it in or is it out? It's pretty clear. It's easier to determine. In baseball, the strike zone, sometimes the human umpires just don't get it, right? The cameras at the top of bleachers, they detect the strike zone based on the batter's height. So for those of y'all who really want to get technical here, so the top of the strike zone is about 53.5% of the batter's height, and the bottom of the strike zone is 27% of the batter's height. It takes into consideration the batter stance. Some players, as we all know, they're switch hitters. They're become more rare nowadays, but there are some. And they got one stance when batting right-handed and another stance for batting left-handed. The second input is basically the pitch arc, the path that the ball takes as it travels from the pitcher to the catcher. And the pitch data generated by the MLB tracking system describes the path of the center of the ball as it travels through the space. Notice that this is straight out of Major League Rulebook. The ball has a radius of 1.45 inches. As defined by the rule book. But that's not what's the most important thing. The most important thing to remember is the system tracks the center of the ball. Okay, so those are the two inputs. And then there's the output, ball or strike, right? Once the system determines whether it's a ball or a strike, a robotic voice tells the human through an earpiece they're wearing. It's pretty much instant, and then the human relays that information to everybody else. To fans, they may or may not even notice a difference.
So when you hear this is all helping the umpires who will still be there. As you said, it's not a robot takeover. It's helping
Yes.
them do their job more accurately. And I would think that fans of the game would like to see more accuracy and not a variance as we've seen over the years. between the strike zone with the human element.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing, Julia. MLB plans to use a challenge system during this testing phase. Most baseball fans are familiar with the challenge system that currently exists in Major League Baseball, where managers can challenge calls. But can you explain how this will work during the game, during this testing phase, and how they're using it in the minor league so far?
Yeah, it should be, the implementation should be pretty straightforward, especially it's been already tested in the AAA seasons. So a team is allowed to challenge what's called a limited number of balls in strike called by the human umpire. And during a AAA game, each team gets 3 challenges that are not successful. If the challenger is ultimately proven to be correct, as in, hey, the human umpire made a mistake, it happens a lot, then the team gets to retain that challenge. So they don't lose a chance to challenge, but 3 challenge, it's still not a lot overall. So it sort of becomes an art. Should I say it? Should I say it? Should I not say it? Okay, it depends on where I am. One of my producers actually made an excellent point. I didn't make this, so I got to give him credit. So if I'm at the beginning of the game and I'm thinking, maybe that call isn't correct, I might want to save my challenge for a later time because I don't know what's going to happen the next few hours. After the 6th inning or later in a close, tight game, I would be more inclined to challenge if I haven't used up the team's quota. My producer said this would be a momentum changer, and I expect that too.
Yeah, one of the things I find interesting is, though we've already seen challenges in baseball and other sports, is that if the accuracy does increase, particularly with balls and strikes, do we start to see less challenges, or is it still a lot of challenges with safe or out, or those kind of things about the same? That'll be interesting to see. Now, here's the thing. This is going to be tested in 2025. There's a chance, if this is successful, that robot umpires could be implemented during the 2026 Major League Baseball season. So I think the major question for me here, Julia, is do you think that this will enhance the overall experience for fans at home and also in the ballparks?
Probably yes, if they stick to the challenge system and don't go full on ABS. And the reason I say that is because in the league's own survey, they found that both in uniform personnel, including the players and coaches, and also fans, they prefer a challenge system over full ABS. So in full ABS, every call is made by the robot. In a challenge system, challenges to calls are made in real time with umpire getting an answer through the earpiece. And that's why the league decided to test a challenge system first and not the full ABS first. People just do not seem to prefer the human element being completely ripped out of this game experience. Here are actually the numbers that I read, and I find this super interesting, is only 11% of the personnel and only 23% of the fans, they want full ABS. If 61% of the team personnel, including players, and 47% of the fans, they prefer the challenge system, and 28% of the personnel and 30% of fans, they prefer human umpires making all the calls. Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting for me because it also brings me to the last thing I wanted to talk to you about, right? Because you're always going to have traditionalists in any sport, and particularly in baseball. So just from a business perspective, what challenges, you can say, or what opportunities does MLB face in implementing an ABS system, and how might that influence their relationship with traditionalists and who are fans of the sport? How do you think that'll all work and help the league from a business perspective?
Right, sure. And I will start with the challenge first. MLB has to make sure the system is secure. That is a business problem. That is a technical problem. That is a marketing problem. That is a PR problem. Whatever you call it, it is a problem they have to deal with. Cybersecurity. How do you make sure the player's data isn't altered? Because in my opinion, in my personal opinion, the biggest weak link among all these, operations is the interface where you choose the batter. A human being manually selects the drop down and selects the player. What if this person selects the wrong player? Okay, what if this player that they end up selecting has a very different height than the person who's actually batting? So you have to have a set of guardrails to make sure this doesn't happen, because once it happens, it would be a huge scandal. On the positive side, okay, I'm really excited about this because this might be my favorite part, and maybe someday you and I can participate this way. There is the tradition of having non-sports figures, non-players throw the ceremonial first pitch. Well, can we have a celebrity behind the home plate? Can we be invited? Can somebody who's not playing, can somebody who doesn't know much about baseball be there and make a call because they're getting the information from their earpiece anyway? Can Taylor Swift, Beyonce, whoever is your favorite celebrity, Dexter, name your favorite person?
I can see this. I see where you're going, and I see a business opportunity there. I can see that. I can see the league wanting to put out some celebrity umps. Now, I don't know if all of them want to stand out there for 9 innings,
right.
But yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, but this is, at the end of the day, this is a real world example of how to use technology to solve a rather frustrating and occasionally entertaining problem. This problem has been around forever. Bad umps calls are just part of life. They're just part of baseball game, very much like standing in line getting a beer. So the point of implementing the challenge system at the end of the day is to improve accuracy. I don't know what your guests have been telling you over this topic, but I have had former major leaguers telling me that they personally believe maybe between a third and a half of the home plate umps are decent. So some of the calls we both know they're questionable. Some of the calls, they're delayed. Sometimes they're just like, I'm just really not sure about this guy. So hopefully this would improve accuracy. And every time I go on a show to talk about a technology like this, my producer always makes me talk about one name, Angel Hernandez.
Well, that is a very popular umpire among baseball fans. Yes.
Yeah. And you know, he didn't make the best calls. He was around. I mean, he had a really long career, as did Joe West and other people. Joe West actually, incidentally, was during the testing phase many years ago of this whole robotic system. Joe West actually said, oh, well, the robotic umps, they missed a lot of calls. And back then, when he said this 1 month, the robotic umpires, they missed 500 calls. And when he said they missed 500 calls, he didn't mean they made the wrong calls. He meant they just didn't make the call at all. But that's no longer a problem. So that shows you how the technology has evolved. So right now, the call is nearly instant. They always make the call. I cannot say it's always going to be 100% because you can't say that with any system, any software, or anybody. But hopefully the accuracy will only improve from now on.
That is the hope, and we will see how that all shakes out. I find it very fascinating. I'm intrigued to see if people see it more during the testing phase and are able to read more about it or hear more of these conversations, Julia. Will they then be maybe more inclined to see it in baseball in 2026? But we will see how that all shakes out. That is a great Julia Sun. Does a great job hosting on many shows and also contributor to a lot of sports business news. Julia, always a pleasure talking to you, and we'll see what happens with these robot umpires.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Anytime.